How's it going, guys? Mark with Sea Swivel here. We're down here at Power Tech down here in the Florida Keys. We're going to do an install on the first troll track assembly, and here it goes. So starting out on the left hand side, we have all of our mounting hardware. We have the Sea Secure, we have the wrench for the Sea Secure, we have the backing plate, the pull pin assembly, the PTFE washer for the pull pin assembly. You have your mount for the trolling motor, and you have your Delrin puck. The production units are going to be black, so that don't mind that it's silver, but this is just the first one that we're doing the video install on, and let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is determine whether you're going to mount this on the port side of the boat or the starboard side of the boat, because by doing so you can pick which side you want your pull pin assembly on and which side you want your Sea Secure on. So we're going to go ahead and mount this on the port side of this boat. So we're going to start by installing our pull pin assembly and our Sea Secure on the starboard side of the unit, so you have all of the stuff that you're going to use inboard of the boat and not on the outboard side. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get our pull pin assembly installed. Since we're doing a port side install, we're going to go ahead and mount our pull pin assembly on the starboard side of the plate. You're going to take your pull pin assembly with your PTFE gasket. You're going to apply a little bit of blue Loctite on these threads before you put it inside here. You're going to make sure that this jam nut is backed all the way to the housing. Go ahead and install it, and then you're going to tighten this jam nut down until it's nice and snug. Next, you're going to take your trolling motor bracket. You're going to slide it onto the Delrin piece, undo your pull pin. Alright, so next we're going to take our trolling motor and we're going to mount it to the sliding mount. If you're using a Garmin Kraken or a regular Minn Kota, you're going to use the pre-drilled 6 holes that are in the plate, the ones that are farthest to the front of it. If you have a Minn Kota Quest motor, there's going to be a Quest adapter plate that you have to mount to this, and then you're going to utilize all 8 holes, and then you'll have the plate that hangs over on the sides, and then you'll have your 3/8 holes for that model. But today we're doing a Garmin Kraken install, so we simply just bolt it to the plate. You're going to take the supplied hardware that comes in your bag, which is going to be the 6 1/4-20 screws, and you're going to apply a little bit of blue Loctite to these and go ahead and put them in from the top and then throw them down into the plate. So I just want to show you guys that there's a screw that's going to be hidden behind this power cable here, so you have to kind of just push the power cable out of the way. But you have your 2 in the back, your 2 in the middle, and then you have to kind of move the trolling motor out of the way, and then you can get to your front 2 screws that are there in the front. Alright, so when you go to do your setup, there's 2 things you want to consider. Like I said earlier, you want to make sure that the edge of the troll track assembly is at least level or hanging over the rub rail. And then you also want to get your angle to make sure that your trolling motor head isn't sticking too far out of the boat. So once you get the trolling motor to where it's inside the rub rail, or you're not blocking any of your other hatches or forward seating, now you kind of have the angle that you want it to go at. And you can do a bow mounted style like this, or if you wanted to, you can do an offset mount and bring it off out the side as well. Also, another good tip too, you can kind of hold your foot on the back of the Delrin piece and go ahead and just deploy the trolling motor to make sure you do have your shaft clearance here. So now that we know we have our shaft clearance, everything's going to clear, we can go ahead and take a marker and kind of put a line on both sides of the bracket, and that's going to give us the angle that we need to be and also where we need to drill the holes. Once we have our motor back in the stood position, I went ahead and marked the sides of the Delrin and the back of the Delrin, and now we can go ahead and move the trolling motor out of the way and drill our holes. You can then undo your locking pin, and then you can slide your trolling motor back and get it off of the Delrin piece so we can go ahead and get it mounted. So once we have our trolling motor off, make sure that all of our lines still line up to where we wanted it in the correct orientation. And now we're going to go ahead and drill our holes. So it's really important to make sure that you have the 1/4-20 and the 5/16 by 18 holes going toward the bow, because this is where most of the pressure is going to be on the Delrin puck. So that's why we have the 4 screws that are close together, and then your further spaced apart screws are going to be toward the back here. So we're going to go ahead and grab a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill our 4 1/4 holes, and a 5/16 drill bit to go ahead and drill our 4 5/16 holes. So now that we have our holes drilled, I'm going to do one more dry fit of the trolling motor. So I'm going to go ahead and take the trolling motor, slide it on there, and just make sure all my angles are good before I go ahead and through bolt everything in. So as you can see, our dry fit looks good. The trolling motor is exactly where we want it to be inside the rub rail, and we're going to clear this hatch here. So now that I know that our angle is good, I'm going to go ahead and slide the trolling motor off, and we're going to go ahead and through bolt everything in. All right, so after we have our holes drilled, we're going to go ahead and just put some silicone around the holes that we drilled. And also, if you have any old holes from any old brackets, you know, now's the time to just go ahead and fill those holes in with silicone, just so everything's nice and watertight. Before we start tightening these bolts down, you want to grab some Tef gel or some nickel anti-seize and make sure you apply some to the threads here, because if you attempt to put this lock nut on there without it, you're going to gall up the 316 stainless steel. So make sure these are well lubricated before you move forward to trying to tighten them down. All right, so once we have our silicone down and we have the Delrin mounted on the boat, we're going to go ahead and put the screws in. And the most important part of this install is when you go to tighten up these screws, what you don't want to do is over tighten them. If your deck has any crown whatsoever, what's going to happen is when you tighten the Delrin piece, it's going to want to bend up and down with the deck. So you want these screws to be snug, but you definitely don't want to over tighten them. If they are over tightened, you'll go to put the trolling motor on and you'll notice that it's not going to want to slide smoothly. If you do run into that issue, get a straight edge and make sure that this surface is completely flat, and then loosen whatever screws that you need to make sure that this is just completely flat and true. All right, so next step is we're going to take our supplied backing plate. We're going to go ahead and put it underneath the deck, take the supplied hardware, and let's go ahead and get this thing tightened down. All right, so once we have all of our bolts tightened down, we have our backing plate installed. Make sure you do not use a power tool to tighten these things down. Tighten them down by hand. And like I said before, don't over tighten them. So once you have everything installed, you want to take the trolling motor and install it and just make sure that it slides smoothly. If it doesn't slide with ease, then that's most likely because the bracket's been over tightened, and you have to find out which screw is pulling the Delrin piece down to the deck. And so you want to just make sure that it's completely flush. So if you're sliding smoothly like we are here, then you're good to go. We can go on to the next step. All right, so now that we have this thing slid on, we're going to go ahead and take our Sea Secure, thread it into the hole with a little bit of blue Loctite, and then you're going to take your key and your screwdriver that came in the kit, and we're going to go ahead and tighten this thing down until we get it really nice and snug. Make sure you crank it down pretty good, and then now you're set. That's very important to do that, because if this Sea Secure is not in here, that is what keeps the trolling motor from continuously sliding off the track and going overboard. So you want to make sure you always have the Sea Secure in and it's nice and tight, and that's something that you're going to want to check periodically just to make sure it's not rattling free. So we got our first troll track assembly installed. This is the stowed position. As you can see, it's completely inside the rub rail. You have your Sea Secure and your pull pin mounted on the inboard side. That's what's cool about this, is you can pick either side to mount it on. This one's just raw aluminum, but we'll have them in black hard anodized moving forward. But figured I'd give you guys a video of it. Came out pretty awesome. Got the mag mount on here, of course. Trolling motor inside the boat. Lower unit inside the boat. Good to go.